This is Subarctic beekeeper recovering from COVID, north of Fairbanks, Alaska. I thought I'd give a brief tour of the bee barn. This is where we winter our bees. Used to do it outdoors, but I missed them too much. Here's the side of the bee barn so you can see how big it is. It's a little tall, but the person that was helping build it was tall and insisted on 10-foot ceilings. That was a mistake. There's an Arctic entryway you can see right here. That was built after the fact. Got a nice grid down here. Helps with the ice. Thermometer from Ivory Jacks. Arctic entryway. Arctic doors. Severely insulated. Got light in here. This was put on after the fact, so it's not as pretty. I've got another thermometer here. Painting hasn't been finished here. This is because it got locked. Had to take the lock out. So that's temporary. Took the deadbolt out. Okay, so now we're stepping into the actual bee area. And when I come in here, I close the Arctic entryway door first. And then, well, let's just do it like I would do it. If I was doing a check, I'd come in here, turn the light on, and then I would turn the light off. And I would come into the bee area, completely dark. Now I take my hand and I run it across the wall and turn on the red light. And the reason that is red is because bees don't see red, so when they're in here, they're in the dark. But this gives me light so I can work and see what's happening. I have an extra little lamp right there with a red bulb. And so when you're using red lights, you have to use an actual red bulb, not a regular bulb that's painted red. You don't want it giving off heat and you don't want it peeling. This is the crazy setup here. Not so crazy, but I'm sure it could be worked down. It's pretty amazing. Thank you to Stephen George, longtime subarctic beekeeper, and Robert Ragnar, who is a very short-term subarctic beekeeper, for helping me with this. Stephen came up with this setup. Robert did his own similar setup. Both are jacks of all trades and really smart guys. And so I wanted extra outlets, so I've got extra outlets here. I'll kind of go over this a little bit. We got a main power switch right there. If I had my bees in here, I'd be closing this door right now. The CO2 level in here gets high. Not too high, but high enough to get dizzy. So if I stay in here too long without oxygen, then I kind of, get a little loopy. This 4-inch pipe vents to the outdoors. That 4-inch pipe also goes to the outdoors. Extra outlets. Here's my main power switch for the light. This is a timer that you can get. We use these on our vehicles up here. This makes it so that at regular intervals, fresh, cool air is brought in through that fan. Boop. So when that goes off on the timer that I set, on the intervals that I set, that fan kicks on, cool air comes up and blows across the ceiling, which is where the warm air rises to. I've got some conduit, all the wiring is in there, 2 thermostats. This is to remove excess CO2. Because it's got the 90-degree angles, we're not losing any warmth. Sorry, I'm not very articulate right now. COVID really dusted me. So, some signage. That's from the lumber company. Oxygen, and then that says cool over here. This is another fan. You could probably do this with one fan. This thermostat. Well, we'll go over this. This thermostat is set so the temperature does not go below a certain level. This thermostat is set so the temperature doesn't go above a certain level. The temperature range is kept between 41 and 43 degrees Fahrenheit. And what that does, it allows the bees' metabolism to get to a low enough state where they're staying alive. They're able to keep the queen warm. They need to consume some stores, but not very much. It really reduces their metabolism. And they begin to go into a hypoxic state, which means that they don't need as much oxygen. The CO2 is higher. With bees, one thing you have to understand is they breathe through an open respiratory system. Our lungs are inside our bodies. Bees have holes along the sides of their bodies in which air comes in and air goes out. Same with us. Oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. Carbon monoxide out. Sorry. And so when they're in that low metabolic state, bees don't have to take as many breaths as they do when the temperature's warmer. So it keeps their activity real low, which means that they're not going to consume as much stores and they don't need to defecate. Voila. So wiring-wise, and I can post this to our Instagram and our Facebook page. Cool side, black to black, red goes to the appliance, which is the heater. Blue is insulate, and the green is the ground. Bloop, bloop, bloop over this side. The hot side, red goes insulate, blue is to the cooling fan. I think I should reverse these signs. Black is to power, green is to ground. Over here, got a 4-way outlet, and this plug goes into that fan up here. And then we have this tiny little 750 watt heater, little tiny thing. I had a 1200 watt heater, and it made this barn way too warm for the bees. That is normally plugged in to there, and when the temperature gets too cold in here, this will kick on, and this produces enough heat to keep it in the range. So when we're getting temperatures of -30, -40, -50 below Fahrenheit, everything gets cold. And this bee barn is super insulated, but still, what is it, Boyle's law or Charles's law, one of the two. If the temperature outside is cold and you've got a warm temperature inside and you open the windows and such, the temperatures are going to try to equalize and become the same. We don't want that to happen. I've got cement bricks. Cement has good thermal mass, which means it holds on to heat and retains it. Think of walking on a hot sidewalk during the summer with bare feet. Trying to maintain as much heat in here as possible, being able to regulate the temperatures in the environment so the bees can sustain for a good 6, possibly 7 months. Each frame of beeswax with stores, which look like honey but aren't honey, that's in that beehive, has very high thermal mass as well. And it's great for absorbing heat, retaining that heat, and radiating that heat back to the cluster. So I've got extra insulation panels on the floor. I've got a nice 8mm plastic thing down here because there's going to be summer die-off. There'll be deaths throughout the winter. So these shelving units, got at Home Depot. You can set them up for whatever height you want. Capacity for weight is 450 pounds. These are old wooden hives. Don't use wood anymore, really. I use them for storage and shelving and such, but I can stick a hive on there. I'm typically wintering close to 20 hives. This year, much less because of the brain injury and, blah, blah. Had an extra shelf, made that into another place for bees. On this side, I put a couple shelves up, just storage, extra lids, feeders, etc. Extra polystyrene boxes. I've got a fan here that will go up on that hook as soon as the bees are in to circulate air. Vacuum, much needed. Extra foil bubble wrap. Broom and dustpan. Clean up the dead. Under here, I've got a stepping stool because I'm short. And I've got some desiccant. And what that is something that needs to be emptied. This is a white powdery stuff you can get anywhere. It absorbs moisture and takes it out of the air. And what it does is it drops the moisture into the bucket. So So if the humidity in here gets too high, this will take care of it. What else can I tell you? It gets real slick in here, so I have to be careful about the boots I wear. And that's about it. What's going to happen is I get the bees loaded in here today. I do have a giant thermometer here, so I can see the temperature from the doorway. And it measures temperature and humidity, Celsius and Fahrenheit. So what are we, -3 Celsius, 22 degrees Fahrenheit, 42% humidity. I try to keep the humidity about the same as the temperature. That affects the dew point and all of this stuff. The walls are covered in 1/4 inch plywood because wood absorbs moisture. Moisture is what kills our bees during the winter. It's not the cold so much, if you know how to insulate. Behind the wood walls, I've got foam board insulation, a vapor barrier, bat insulation. I think I've got 9 inches of insulation in the roof and in the floor, I think. And then 8 inches of insulation in the walls. Everything wants to get in the bee barn. Creatures are hungry. Insects smell the sweetness and stuff. And so next spring I'll shave this stuff off and paint in here. Yeah, that's the bee barn. This is a pretty complex one. You don't have to do this by any means if you're going to winter your bees in a shelter. By any means. You just got to have real good insulation, some circulation, some temperature controls, and some way to, make sure things don't get too hot or too cold. If I did not winter my bees indoors, they would be fine right now. But since I do winter my bees indoors, they are fine, but they're not optimal. So I'll take you out to the apiary. One of the apiaries. These sticks are for peonies that have to be dug up and replaced with hascat berries, which are these. There's the hives right now, some of them. And they're in polystyrene and covered with a wool blanket and with some foam board insulation. The entrances are closed, other than about a 1/4 inch for some air. I'm going to be moving those soon. They are wrapped with hive straps, which makes life so much easier. It really puts a tight squeeze on those hives, makes them easier to lift and transport. Inside those hives are 10 full frames of bees and 10 full frames of stores. Those are empty feeders that I had to take off the other day. And that's about it. Got to get to moving these bees. This video is copyrighted, all rights reserved. Take care of yourself. Take care of your bees. Have a good winter. And I'll talk to you soon. Ukraine is winning.